ready to dive into something interesting. Today, we're tackling innovation. But not just the surface level stuff. We're going deep on why some ideas soar while others, well, they kind of just flop. And to guide us through this maze, we've got Clayton Christensen's Competing Against Luck as our trusty map.
Christensen's work is like having X-ray vision for customer behavior. It's not about what's on the surface. It's about really understanding what makes people tick, what makes them choose one thing over another.
It's kind of wild when you think about how much time and money gets poured into innovation. I mean, back in 2015, companies dropped a mind-blowing $680 billion on R&D. You'd think with that kind of investment, we'd have this whole innovation thing figured out by now, right?
Seems logical, but there's a twist. It's not just about how much data we can gather. It's about how we make sense of it all. Because here's the thing, just because two things happen at the same time doesn't mean one causes the other.
I think I get where you're going with this, but can you give me an example? Why is that so crucial for innovation?
Okay, imagine we have a ton of data about someone, like their age, their reading habits, their income level, all of that. We even spot a pattern showing a connection between those factors and a higher likelihood of subscribing to the New York Times, for example. But here's the catch. None of that actually explains why they subscribe.
So we might see a link in the data, but that doesn't mean it's the real reason behind their choice. It's like saying everyone who drives a red car loves chocolate ice cream. It's just not necessarily true.
Exactly. Christensen actually uses a great example from his own life to show this. He lists all these facts about himself, his age, height, even his shoe size. But none of those things actually made him buy the New York Times on any given day. To really unlock innovation, we need to understand what truly drives those decisions, the why behind the action.
That New York Times example is a total game changer. It's so easy to get caught up in the obvious data and miss the real story underneath. So how do we dig deeper? How do we uncover those hidden motivations?
That's where the jobs to be done theory comes into play. This framework flips the script on how we view customer behavior. It argues that people aren't just buying products, they're hiring them to do a specific job, to help them achieve something in a certain situation.
Hiring products. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. Can you give me a real-world example? What kind of job are we talking about here?
Hiring products, huh? Okay, I'm hooked, but I need an example. What kind of job are we talking about that's not immediately obvious?
All right, so picture this. It's early morning, you're in line at a fast food place, and you see someone order a milkshake. Your first thought might be, well, they're hungry, they want something sweet, which makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally normal thing to order in the morning.
But get this, when Christensen and his team really dug into it, they found something unexpected. Some people were hiring that milkshake to make their long, boring commute more enjoyable.
Hold on, a milkshake for the commute. That's wild. Never would have crossed my mind. It's true. And it shows how easy it is to misinterpret what we're seeing if we're not looking for the underlying job the customer is hiring a product to do. It gets even more interesting. They found people hiring margarine, but not for its usual purpose. They were using it to moisten dry bread crusts.
Margarine for dry bread. Okay, now you're really opening my eyes to this jobs to be done thing. It's like a whole new way of seeing the world.
Exactly. It's about breaking free from those surface-level assumptions and digging into the real motivations behind those everyday choices.
Okay, finding the job is key. Got it. But how do companies actually figure this out in the real world? It's not like they can read their customers' minds, can they?
Well, not yet anyway. But there are ways to uncover those hidden jobs. Christensen talks about looking beyond the traditional demographics and psychographics. So instead of just age, income, or lifestyle, you dive into the circumstances surrounding a purchase.
So less about who and more about the when and why behind what they're buying.
Exactly. Take mattresses, for instance. Instead of breaking it down by age or income, what if companies focused on the emotions and circumstances around buying a new mattress?
I've never thought about it like that, but it makes sense.
Well, Christensen found people weren't just buying a mattress for a better night's sleep. They were often dealing with the emotional weight of letting go of their old mattress, the memories, the experiences it represented.
Wow, that really resonates. I've definitely felt that pang of nostalgia saying goodbye to an old mattress, especially one from childhood.
There you go. And by tapping into that emotional side, companies can tailor their message, their product, even their customer service, to connect on a deeper level.
It's like they're not just selling a product, they're selling a solution to a job that goes beyond the obvious.
Absolutely. And here's another strategy Christensen highlights. Paying attention to non-consumption.
Non-consumption, is that like when people just aren't buying anything at all?
Exactly. It's about spotting those unmet needs, those areas where a job needs to be done, but nothing out there is quite hitting the mark.
Okay, I can see how that would be a gold mine for innovation. But how do you actually identify those non-consumption zones?
It takes some digging, a willingness to look beyond your existing market. Think about Airbnb. Before they came along, there was a whole group of people who just weren't traveling because hotels weren't cutting it. They craved something different, more homey, affordable, flexible.
And Airbnb tapped into that untapped market, that non-consumption zone, and basically created a whole new industry.
Exactly. It's about asking, what are people not doing and why not? Those answers can be incredibly valuable.
This is making me think about when streaming services first popped up. If you didn't want to deal with the hassle of video stores or waiting for DVDs in the mail, you just didn't watch the movie. Streaming services tapped into that non-consumption and completely changed how we watch movies and shows.
Perfect example. And here's another thought. Don't underestimate the power of unusual uses.
Unusual use? You mean like when people use a product in a way it wasn't originally intended?
You got it. Remember Arm & Hammer baking soda? Started as a baking ingredient, right?
Yeah, my grandma always had a box in her fridge.
But then customers started using it for all sorts of things. Deodorizing, cleaning, you name it.
So Arm & Hammer stumbled onto a gold mine of hidden jobs just by watching how their customers were using their product in unexpected ways.
Exactly. Those unusual uses were a clear sign people were hiring baking soda for jobs far beyond baking.
That's amazing. Who knew baking soda was such a versatile employee?
That's the beauty of this framework.
Yeah.
Helps you see your product through your customer's eyes and uncover possibilities you never imagined.
This is all mind-blowing stuff, but I have to ask. Christensen talks about the 3 fallacies of innovation data. What are those exactly?
Ah, yes. These are like traps, even for the most well-intentioned companies, even when they're trying to be data-driven.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear about these fallacies and how to avoid them, of course.
First up is the fallacy of active versus passive data. Companies can get so caught up in the easily measurable stuff, like sales numbers and website clicks, that they overlook other information that's harder to measure but potentially more valuable.
So they're so focused on the what that they miss the why behind the numbers.
Exactly. They're prioritizing active data, which is easily quantifiable, over passive data, which takes a bit more digging but can reveal those hidden motivations we've been talking about. It's like looking at a map that only shows the main roads but ignores all the scenic back roads and hidden gems.
Okay, I can see how easy it would be to fall into that trap. What's the next fallacy?
The second trap is the fallacy of attractive data. It's about being seduced by data that confirms what we already believe, even if it's not the whole truth. It's tempting to latch onto data that supports our existing biases.
So it's like we're seeing what we want to see, even if it's not the full picture.
Precisely. And that can lead to some serious blind spots, especially when it comes to innovation.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a recipe for staying stuck in the same old way of thinking. Okay, so we've got the fallacy of active versus passive data and the fallacy of attractive data. What's the third one to watch out for?
The third trap is the fallacy of conforming data. This is when we twist the data to fit our narrative, even if it means ignoring or downplaying evidence that contradicts our view.
So instead of letting the data guide us, we're trying to manipulate it to prove our point.
Exactly. And that's a dangerous game to play. Data should help us uncover the truth, not twist it to our liking.
Okay, those are some seriously insightful and honestly a little terrifying pitfalls to watch out for. So how do we avoid them? How do we, as listeners, as people trying to make smart decisions, keep ourselves from falling into these data traps?
That's where a healthy dose of self-awareness and critical thinking come in. We need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions, seek out different perspectives, and be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
You know, that's a really good point. It's so easy to get stuck in our own heads and assume we've got it all figured out. But the more open we can be to new information and different ways of looking at things, the better equipped we'll be to avoid those fallacies.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that data is just a tool. It's not a magic bullet, and it doesn't have all the answers. We need to use it thoughtfully and strategically, always asking ourselves, what's the bigger picture here?
Okay, this has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm already starting to see the world differently, thinking about those hidden jobs behind everyday choices. But let's get practical for a second. We've talked about uncovering those jobs, but how do companies actually build their businesses around them?
That's where things get really exciting. It's about aligning everything, your processes, your organizational structure, even your brand purpose, around delivering that job flawlessly.
So it's not just about the product itself, but the entire customer experience.
Exactly. Your internal processes should be designed to deliver the job efficiently, removing obstacles for the customer.
Can you give me an example?
Think about IKEA. Their flat-pack furniture and single-tool approach might seem quirky, but it's actually brilliant.
You know, I've always found those instruction manuals a bit intimidating, but I have to admit, they've definitely made assembling furniture less daunting.
That's exactly it. They've taken a potentially frustrating job and streamlined it, making it as painless as possible for the customer.
Okay, that's a great example. What about organizational structure? How do you align that with jobs to be done?
The key is to encourage collaboration across different teams, all focused on the job. A great example of this is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB.
What's interesting about their approach?
Well, they structured their entire organization around the jobs of protecting consumers in the financial marketplace. Everyone, no matter their specific role, is working towards that same overarching goal.
So it's like they've created a united front, all working together to solve that one crucial job.
Exactly. And it's not just internal processes and structures. Your brand purpose should also be in sync with the job you're solving.
So instead of just being known for a product or a service, you're known for solving a specific problem for your customers.
You got it. Think about Volvo and safety, or FedEx and overnight delivery. These are what Christensen calls purpose brands.
It's like they've become synonymous with solving that one job exceptionally well.
Precisely. And that clarity of purpose becomes a powerful driver of innovation and customer loyalty. It's like a guiding star for every decision you make.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the power of understanding those jobs to be done to dodging those sneaky data traps. But now I'm curious, how do we actually keep that job front and center in the thick of things? It's easy to get sidetracked in the day-to-day, right?
You're absolutely right. It takes real effort to stay focused. One powerful thing you can do is create what Christensen calls a job spec, just like a job description for a product or service. It acts as a kind of compass.
So it's like a North Star guiding all your decisions and keeping you on track.
Precisely. And remember, Intuit, with their TurboTax revamp, they're a great example of this in action.
Yeah, they really shifted their whole approach. Instead of just piling on features, they got laser focused on what their customers were hiring them to do.
Exactly. They realized people weren't flocking to TurboTax for the love of forms or complex tax codes. They just wanted to get their taxes done quickly, accurately, and without the headache.
So the job wasn't just about software, it was about peace of mind during tax season, like having an expert in your corner, making sure you don't mess it all up.
Exactly. And that shift in focus, focusing on the underlying job, helped them streamline the product, make it more user-friendly, and ultimately build a more successful business.
It's amazing how a simple change in perspective can have such a big impact. Do you have any other examples of companies nailing this job spec approach?
Absolutely. OnStar is a fantastic one. They could have easily defined their job as just navigation and emergency services, but they went deeper.
They realized they were in the business of providing peace of mind, right? Especially for drivers out on the road, often alone and sometimes facing unexpected situations.
Exactly. They understood that emotional connection, that deep-seated need for feeling safe and supported, and they really stepped up to deliver on that.
Like during Hurricane Katrina, when they activated that feature letting people use their OnStar buttons to call for help, even if their cell service was down.
Precisely. They recognized that in that moment, their job became even more critical. They were a lifeline, offering a sense of safety and connection when things were chaotic.
That's incredibly powerful. It really underscores how understanding the job goes beyond just selling something. It's about making a tangible difference in people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's something we can all apply, not just big corporations. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an artist, a student, whatever you do, you're hired to fulfill a certain job.
You know, this whole conversation has really got the wheels turning in my head. What if we applied this jobs to be done framework to our own lives? Looking at our goals, our relationships, even our personal struggles through that lens.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the jobs we're trying to fulfill in our own lives.
Yeah.
What needs and motivations drive our choices? What are the jobs that we are uniquely positioned to solve for others?
It's such a simple but profound shift in thinking, and it could unlock so much creativity and innovation, both personally and professionally. Wow, this has been an amazing deep dive, truly one of the most thought-provoking conversations I've had in a long time. I'm walking away feeling so inspired.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive sparks some new ideas for you. Remember, innovation isn't some mystical force reserved for a select few. It's about empathy, observation, and being willing to dig a little deeper to understand the jobs that need to be done.
That's right. So go out there, find those hidden jobs, and make something amazing happen.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.